Welcome to Lesson 2, Getting to Know the Workspace. As you can see, I have Illustrator Creative Cloud open, and I also have open a file named AI0201, which came as one of my lesson files for Lesson 2. You can open it now as well by selecting File, Browse and Bridge, and navigating to the Lesson 2 folder, or just selecting File, Open, and navigating to the AI0201 file. First thing I want you to notice is that this is sitting in my Creative Cloud workspace, which is a dark UI. If you prefer not to work with that dark UI, you can select Illustrator Preferences User Interface. Now you'll notice that I'm on a Mac, so I select Illustrator Preferences. On the PC, you would select Edit Preferences, and you'll still have the same selections. I can choose to make this UI either darker or lighter, or keep it at the medium dark, which it's set at as a default. I'm going to cancel that and leave it alone as it is. You'll also see that I have a Tools panel over here on the left, which I can click on the header up here, the little arrow in the upper left, to change to a single column or a two-column Tools panel. You also see that I have a Control panel at the top that offers me options that are related to the selected tool. So when I select the type tool, for instance, you see that I can change the character and more. When I select the rectangle, I can change the properties for that rectangle. You'll also see that in the upper right, I have a selection of workspaces, and right now I'm set to Essentials. If you're not set for Essentials, select Essentials and choose Essentials, or select Reset Essentials if your workspace doesn't look like mine. I want you to notice that there are panels off to the right, and I can grab that left border and pull this out to see the text. You can select to see just the icons or the text, or you can even click on these items to expand the entire panel. Now you'll notice when I click on color that the panel comes out, and as soon as I click on another panel, it goes away, and the color guide covers up the color panel. Each one of these items is a group of panels, and you'll see that as I click down, the other one goes away to show me the new one. If you ever want a panel to remain out in your work area, you can click on the tab and drag a panel out. That panel will now remain unless you go up and close it. Now going back to the file that you opened up, you'll notice that it has something called artboards. 2 artboards, in fact. Think of artboards as being separate pages within your Illustrator document. It might be confusing at first because Illustrator is typically used for single-page documents such as illustrations and logos, but it can also be used for creating business cards and letterheads, and also multiple web pieces of art, all using these artboards. Now, this particular file does have artboards implemented. You've got 1 and 2, and you'll notice that down at the bottom, I can click on the artboard navigation and I can switch between 1 or 2. You'll also see that I have a window that's called Artboards, and I can navigate this way as well by double-clicking from one to the other. Now if I double-click too much on the text, I can even change the name so that I can name this something a little bit better, and I'll call this the cover, so that I remember what that artboard does. You'll also see that if I select an artboard, that I can take advantage of a panel menu. And that's the menu up in the upper right hand corner of most of your panels. And when I click and hold down on this, I can choose to create a brand new artboard, or duplicate this artboard, or even delete them. So if you want to duplicate artwork and create several versions, this is a great way to do it. Now keep this in mind. I'm just going to create a new file. And I want you to notice that when I create a new file, I can select that I want it letter. I can also select the orientation and click OK. Now how do I make a change to this orientation and the size later? Typically you would go to the Artboard tool. And when you click on this, you'll notice that you can change the size of your document, and you can also change the orientation. You can also enter a value inside the width and height as well. Now, in Illustrator, as a default, this came up as points. I can easily come in here and type that I want this 17 inches by simply putting in the double quote mark. And when I press the tab, it does convert that to points. If you'd prefer to change your preferences, you can also go under Illustrator Preferences or Edit Preferences and select that you want to change the units and change those general units to inches. Do not change the stroke or the type. That will get really confusing if you're measuring those in inches. And then click OK. Now I'm going to close this and go back to my other document. Let's talk about what we've got going on in here, because this could appear a little bit confusing. There are a lot of vector points. So you're seeing points and paths that are connecting them. If I'm working on a document, I have a couple ways of looking at it. And I can choose to view this in the outline view by pressing Command or Control Y, or back in the preview mode of Command or Control Y. And it's a toggle switch so that you can go back and forth between the two views if you're trying to do something really precise and the artwork's getting in the way. You can also notice that I can scroll in and out really easily. So if I take the zoom tool, I can click on this and click, 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 click until I'm zoomed in as much as I can go in, which is actually 6,400%, which is a lot. Or I can simply press Command-Shift-0 to see all my artboards, or Control-Shift-0 on the PC, or Command-0 or Control-0 to see just the artboard that I have selected in the artboard panel. Now I find it easier to actually use the zoom tool, but not click, 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 click to zoom in, but click and drag a marquee area so that I can zoom in exactly where I want, and then I can press Command or Control-0 to zoom back and see the entire bit of artwork again. What you might also want to take advantage of is the fact that when you are zoomed in, so I'll zoom in again, that you can use your space bar to just push around the image so that you don't have to figure out which way to scroll. Now this works when you're on most tools, except of course if you're typing, because then you'll just enter spaces. And I'll press Command-0 to zoom back out. Command-0 works in most Adobe applications and is simply the fit in window keyboard shortcut. So in this lesson, you discovered a little bit more about the Adobe Illustrator Creative Cloud Workspace.